Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, just wanted to offer you a free gift here as a part of being a listener of my show. If you go to kfmfree.com, you can get the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that every man must live by. So obviously every show we talk about books and we talk about success quotes. And so I've compiled the best of the best out of the last 100 episodes into a short guide. So kfmfree.com and it's all yours. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Alan C. Fox. He has a new book, People Tools for Love and Relationships. The Journey from Me to Us is the third in his extraordinary popular People Tools series. Fox has researched and tested people tools his entire life, and they are what keeps his 3-decade-long marriage happy and vital. All right, Alan, happy to have you here on the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be with you.
All right. And as we discussed earlier, we start off every show with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that you've lived by. So share with us what you got and why you chose that.
Absolutely. Well, in my People Tools book, the last chapter, Love is the Answer. And my favorite quote is from George Sand, who says, "There is only one happiness in life, to love and be loved." And I certainly live by that.
When did you have this type of realization and how has it changed your life?
I had it pretty young. You know, I was a teenager, 13, 14. I wanted to figure out how to get a girl to love me. So I went to the library and I did research and read magazines and books. And I finally found one sentence in one book which said it all. It said, if you want someone to love you, love them first. And I've always made it a point in my life to let people know I care. And, you know, Andrew, that's taking a risk. I mean, you know, they could laugh. They could say, well, gee, I don't care for you too much. But I find that in taking a risk in life, especially the risk of caring for other people, it usually pays off very, very well. And, you know, I don't have to win them all.
Yeah, that's right. You only need one woman. Well, let's real quick on this topic. Why do you think people don't love first or show that love? Maybe they do love the person, but they're afraid to show it.
You're right. And I've had friends talk to me and say, you know, and I've said to them, hey, you sound like you're in love. They said, well, yeah, I guess so. I said, well, have you told them? Well, no, I don't want to go first. And sometimes you have two people and nobody goes first. So I think they're afraid. You know, I think we're all afraid of the unknown. And certainly if you ask someone to marry you, you expect a yes. And if you're not sure, you tend to be conservative and not say anything. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah. So it's that fear of the rejection of not getting love back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't like rejection at all. And I try to be so good in a relationship I don't get rejected too much, but it's going to happen. And you just have to set aside your fear and go for it anyway.
Yeah, I like that. Taking that risk. I like that. Okay. Well, Alan, how'd you get started with this? Like, what's the story behind the book here? What led you down this path?
Well, I've always really wanted to help people and wanted to be a writer, but I took a long detour. I've had a very long and successful business career, and I'm still doing that at age 75. And about 25 years ago, I went back to school and got a degree in professional writing, and that's when I started writing People Tools. And I wrote the first book over about 20 years, and that came out 2014 in January. And then the second book on People Tools for Business, meaning, you know, techniques of getting along with other people. I'm not a natural. I had to learn how to do this stuff. And so I'm sharing what I've learned with everybody so that other people can have a better life.
Yeah. And in this, you mentioned something there. You said, you know, I'm not a people person. I had to learn this stuff. What was it like for you before you started having these skills, and what is it like for you now?
Well, before I had the skills, frankly, it was terrible. I was an attorney. I had my own practice, and every time I was meeting someone for a potential new client, I was terrified. I was very, very shy with people. And I think that's because, my dad was a musician and made music, and he came home from dinner one night. He said, I proved that my fellow musicians are not sociable. And we said, well, Dad, how'd you do that? He said, well, during one of the breaks, I stood on the wall with my arms crossed, and nobody approached me. And my dad just didn't know, if you stand with your arms crossed and looking into space, nobody's going to approach you. And that's kind of the modeling I had. And I just didn't know how to do it. And when I was 30, I went back to school and got a degree in counselor education. And I learned that, you can be shy and just say so. I learned to be authentic, and you don't have to be perfect. I'm a terrible perfectionist. I want to be perfect all the time, and I'm not. And that's embarrassing. Well, nobody's perfect all the time. So I've had to learn to let people know that. I make mistakes. I advertise them in my business. And that's one of my people tools for business. Advertise your mistakes. So give other people permission to make mistakes and let you know so you can fix things. And my life goes a lot better when I listen to people more and I care about them and let them know that.
Yeah. I think that's a key part that's missing, is letting them know that in a relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, you can feel something for somebody, but if you don't say so, how are they going to know? They're going to have to guess. And I have a chapter in People Tools for Love and Relationships. Don't mind read. Don't expect your partner to read your mind, and then don't expect that you can read their mind. You got to say it out loud or write it.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned about being authentic. And this goes along with right now with what we're talking about. And to me, authenticity is being clear in your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And all these three things are clear, and you're communicating that straightforward. And so exactly, if you love someone, if you care about someone, if they mean a lot to you, and so that's your thoughts, but your words aren't following that, and you're not communicating that. And hopefully your actions are, though.
Absolutely. Well, we want to make a good first impression. But I know a woman, her fiance loved to go out on his boat. They went out every weekend, and then they got married. And right after the ceremony, as soon as the minister said, now pronounce you man and wife, she said to her new husband, now I don't have to go out on your darn boat anymore. Well, she wasn't being authentic before they got married, and she let him know pretty early, and that marriage didn't do too well. So you got to be your real self and attract people who like you for who you are, not for who you're not.
For who you're pretending to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to attract someone to you who falls in love with the person you're pretending to be.
Exactly. And if I was dating and I met a woman who liked tennis, and I start saying, "Oh, I love tennis," yeah, then I go out and take. So that's not going to work too well. And so I just said, well, I don't like tennis, but here's what I do like, and I like going to plays, for example. Do you like that? And find people who are like-minded and to get along with the real you.
Yeah, it kind of comes off as a little needy if someone was to do that. For example, you said, I love tennis, and like you go and start buying tennis clothes. It's kind of needy. It's kind of coming from a scarcity frame where you're trying to please this person. Like you're not enough the way you are.
Exactly. And I have one chapter in People Tools for Love and Relationships says, with all faults. I work a lot in real estate, and sometimes you see a property for sale, WAF, with all faults. In other words, take it as it is and fix it up yourself. I apply that to relationships. You're going to have friends with all faults, and you have your faults, and you got to accept those and understand that this fantasy of finding the perfect person is exactly that. It's a fantasy. It never has happened in my life, even though I've wanted it to. And another chapter I have is be the right person, and essentially, Andrew, that's what we're talking about. Be authentic.
Yeah. This is good. It's very powerful. And you start to actually love yourself more when you're being authentic, because then you're getting results based on who you really are and not the person that you're pretending to be. And it just feels good to know that, hey, myself, my naked self, is enough for the things I want in life, for the relationships, for the people I want in life.
Exactly. And the right person is gonna love you and like you also for who you really are, and will really appreciate your being authentic and real. And that's something I think we all hunger for, and we know it when we're in the presence of someone who's real, and we know it when they're phony.
Yeah. Let's go into the 5 relationship mistakes that you must avoid. What are the tips here?
Okay, would you refresh me on that? I think that was a blog I wrote.
Yeah, so you start off with forgetting to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Okay, yes. Well, here's the deal. A lot of people like to take care of other people, and that's absolutely fine. And women take care of their children. In a relationship, you take care of each other, but you got to remember, take care of yourself first. If you've ever ridden on an airplane, you know the speech they give. If there's a loss of oxygen, your mask will drop. Take care of yourself first, then take care of your child or others. You got to take care of yourself first, because if when you do, then you have a full life and you can take care of others even better. But if you're just sacrificing all the time, I think that's a big mistake. And you should remember to take care of yourself. That's not being selfish. It's making it so that you can take care of other people even better.
Yeah. And the next one you have is failing to create boundaries.
Well, absolutely. And the subtitle of my book is The Journey from Me to Us. And we're all born individuals as me. And in a relationship, there are 2 me's and 1 us. But you can't lose sight of the fact you can't just lose your entire personality and life in the relationship. So you have to have the relationship and still have your own identity. So, my wife and I do different things during the day, and we go out together in the evenings. But she has her friends, I have mine, and so we have a life together, certainly, and with our family. But we also have separate lives as well. And I think it's important to not make the mistake just submerging yourself entirely in a relationship.
Yeah. Well, would you say that this is one of the most common?
I think it's very common. It's very easy to do. And I don't know about you, Andrew. I grew up with the idea that you grow up, you meet your one and only, and live happily ever after. And kind of didn't work out that way for me. I've been married 3 times. First time for 10 years, second time for about 5 years. And now I think I'm getting it a lot better. I've been married to my present wife for 35 years and doing well. Part of that is because each of us does have our separate life, and we certainly have a very, very nice life together.
Yeah. Why do you think people don't set up those boundaries?
I think it's an expectation that in order for somebody to love me, I have to please them all the time. I have to agree with them. And, I think we all have either a fear of engulfment, in other words, people being too close, or a fear of abandonment. For me, it's a fear of abandonment. So I have to remind myself that I'm good enough and I'm not perfect. And that is why so many times we make the mistake of pretending to be who we think the other person wants. There's a story about my parents, and my mother loved to go to museums. So one time they were traveling and they reached a town in Texas, and my dad said, "Would you like to go to the museum?" And my mom thought, well, I really don't want to, but I guess he wants to this time. So they went to the museum, spent a few hours, and later that evening they found that neither one of them wanted to do that. So they were both trying to please the other, and they ended up pleasing neither one.
Okay.
So, you gotta take care of yourself and please yourself, and certainly pay attention to the needs of your partner, but not exclusively.
Yeah. Having that balance between getting your needs met and also satisfying hers as well.
Exactly.
Okay. And the next one you have is about avoiding financial discussions.
Well, in most families, there are some subjects which just aren't talked about. One certainly is sex, but a very, very important subject is money. And my experience is that most parents do not talk to their children about money because they feel they'll be embarrassed or they don't want the kids to know and tell their friends, whatever reason. I met a woman once, I said, and she got a new job. And, I have a business. I need to know what people are earning, what the salaries are out there. And I said to her, so what's your new salary? And she said, Alan, I wouldn't even tell my mother that. I said, well, I won't tell your mother either. So how much do you earn? And she told me. And you see, I'm comfortable talking about money. Fortunately, in my family, we talked about money a lot. And it's very important. That's a super important part of life. There's a woman who worked for me years ago, and she'd been married about 2 years, and they went to buy a house, and she found out for the first time that her husband's credit was terrible, and they couldn't get a very good loan on the house, and she never knew that. And I guess they never talked about money. So it's something which it's too important not to communicate about, even if you're embarrassed, even if you're not experienced at it. You got to break through and be able to talk about money with each other.
Yeah. Talking about money it reveals something a lot deeper. It can be very emotional if someone's not at the level that they want to be at. So it's kind of like a deeper level of vulnerability when you talk about money. You're revealing something about yourself that some people associate with value, like their job and what they do and how they save and how they spend their money, their finances, their credit. It says a lot about the person. And so by talking about your money, it's also talking about who you are, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. And it's important that your partner know because, some people like to spend every penny. Other people like to save. Yeah. And I'm kind of a saver, and I expect my wife to at least be careful with money. And so we have to talk about it and decide as a partnership how we deal with money and what our values are. Would we rather spend on clothing or on a vacation or savings? And you got to work that out. And I agree with you, Andrew. Most people, we have higher aspirations, and we feel that we really haven't got as much money as we hope to get, and we're still working on it, and that can be embarrassing. But be embarrassed. It's not that big a problem. You can solve problems when you talk about them. You can't solve them and you can't get help if you don't talk about your problems.
Yeah, especially if you're holding them in and just hoping that they go away with time.
That's true.
Yeah, good point there. I like that. That was a good quote there. I'll pull that one out. Okay, next one you have here is not getting clear about your core values.
Well, this is a very important one, Andrew, and People Do It for Love and Relationships. I have a whole chapter on that. Now, core values are values that you won't change. That's why it's a core value. For example, I wouldn't live with someone who smoked or who drank to excess. That's just something I'm not going to put up with. And I'm sure my wife has her core values. One of hers is being truthful. So I think you have to find out, you have to really know what your core values are because you don't want bad surprises. Like that woman I talked about earlier who didn't want to go on the boat, I guess is a core value of hers not to go on the boat. And you have to know yours and your partner's and know it in advance. And if you have conflicting core values, if one of you wants to spend money on vacations, and I know couples, the woman loves to travel, the man wants to stay home. Well, that could be a big problem, and that's something you should talk about in advance and also during a relationship because sometimes your values change.
And how far should you go? Let's use that example. Woman loves to travel, man loves to stay at home. How far should the man go before he's really just bending over backwards and he's really fulfilling her needs and not getting his needs met?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, Andrew, for myself, I can't bend over too far on certain things. It just doesn't work for me. So fortunately, on the vacation one, my wife and I see pretty similarly, but you've got to compromise to some extent. So let your spouse travel with one of my sons and his wife each take a 1-week vacation with other friends each year. So that works for them, perfectly okay. Or if there are substitutes for travel, doing things in the town you live in, or taking short trips. So you have to kind of try to accommodate the other. But, that resonates with me when you say bending over backwards, because if you go too far, you're just going to be unhappy. You're going to be angry at your partner. They're going to know that. and it's not going to work too well.
Yeah, the worst kind of fight to have is when you're on vacation, because you're spending a lot of money. It's like you're supposed to enjoy every minute.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's happened a few times with me, but not too often.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about this one? This is interesting. Sticking it out too long.
Well, that's always an interesting question. And I certainly believe in working on a relationship and working with your partner to make it successful. And I often tell people who are having problems, I said, look, work on it. Now, there are two reasons to work on it. The obvious first reason is to try to get your relationship so it works better and works for both of you. But the second reason is also important, and that is if you have to end the present relationship, by having the skill and the experience of working on a relationship, then next time you're probably going to do a better job. So it's a matter of working on it together and getting better. We all assume that relationships are kind of automatic. Well, if you want to run a computer, you have to learn how to use Excel or Microsoft Word. And we just assume that in a relationship, it's just automatic. We automatically know how to do it. And, I don't think we know it automatically any more than we know how to use Excel automatically without getting some instruction and experience.
Right. And computers are constantly being upgraded, just like we need to constantly be growing as well.
Exactly.
In the relationship. It's just because you have it changes, things happen. And so we constantly need to be growing. And yeah.
You have to be growing and changing in business and absolutely in relationships.
So why would you think someone sticks it out too long? What are they afraid of?
Well, we're afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And I think we often think, well, the relationship I have isn't very good, but gee, that was a mistake I made in my first two marriages. After two unsuccessful marriages, I thought, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And I figured out what I was doing wrong was if a woman expressed interest in me very early in the relationship, and my first wife and my second wife asked me out after our first date, and I thought, wow, I'm not very desirable. And if a woman is expressing interest, I better grab her and not really, pay attention to any problems we might have. And that was a mistake, as I was afraid of the unknown. I was thinking that no one else would love me. And I think you have to take the risk and understand what your tolerance is to not have a good relationship. Many spouses are physically abused and they stay for years and years. I think that's one. Get out immediately. In my first book, People Tools, I have a chapter on patterns persist, which is one of my favorite tools. And when you identify a pattern in yourself or in someone else, such as your spouse or your partner, expect it to continue. If, my God, I've been overweight most of my life and decided 3 years ago I'm going to just lose weight, and I lost 70 pounds and got down. But, if you'd bet against me, you'd probably have the better bet. So I think you have to be aware of the patterns and know when it's more than you can take, that you can do better and you should do better. The chapter on that in my new book is, abandon ship. Sometimes you have to move on and make room in your life for a better relationship.
Abandon ship. Would you have a bell in the house? You're like, abandon ship. You just run out of the house. Okay.
Well,
Anyways,
my wife and I have had some rather hard talks, and we've never separated. But
yeah.
She's told me sometimes she's not happy, and I better change my ways, and I have, and vice versa.
Yeah. So you have the importance of being the right person.
Yes. We tend to grow up with the idea that you meet one person, you fall in love, you get married, and live happily ever after. So we all think that we have to find the right person. And then if it doesn't work, we say, I know what the problem is. I didn't find the right person yet. I thought I did, but gee, I was mistaken. So I'm going to leave and find somebody else. If you keep on looking for somebody else to be perfect and to take care of you and to meet all your needs, I don't think you're going to ever find them. And so that's why to be the right person, you have to learn to take care of yourself and I think you have to learn to be authentic. I studied with a psychiatrist years ago, and he said that everybody before they get married should have their own job, have their own apartment, and have the confidence and experience of taking care of themselves before they hook up with somebody else on a permanent basis. And I think that's a pretty good idea, and I think we do that more and more now because the average age of marriage is, in the high 20s, and it used to be much lower than that.
Right. I often ask this question to a guy who's maybe struggling with dating or maybe newly single. I ask him, would you date yourself?
Hey, that's a good question. What answer do you get, Andrew?
Some guys would say yes, and some guys really have to think about it. And if they wouldn't date themselves or find themselves interesting, I find that they're lacking a life other than just work. And there's not much going on. There's not much social. There's not much activities that they're doing. Not much hobbies. Not spending a lot of time with other people. And it's like bringing those things back into your life makes you a more attractive person. And when you can, I would date myself. I think I'm a catch. Like, I think I'm a really good catch. It really adds a lot of confidence to the whole dating game when you're going out and looking for women, because you know that you're a catch. And it's just a simple question.
Well, and also, women like men who are confident or who appear to be confident. And to be confident, to be really confident, I think you have to experience success. But how do you get successful without being confident? So my book, People Tools for Business, I talk about, fake it until you make it. In other words, act as if you're confident. And gradually over time, it took me probably till I was 35 years old to really feel confident, even though I had my own business, so I had to act confident all the time, and it took a while. So I agree, especially for men and women too. You gotta be confident in your abilities, and also attention must be paid. You got to pay attention to a relationship. I find in my life when I pay a lot of attention to my business, it does well. But if I don't pay attention to my relationship, it kind of withers. So you gotta pay attention to the other person and to your relationship.
You have something called happiness equals expectations minus reality.
Yep. We all think that happiness depends on what we get in life. And I say, no, it depends on what you expect. If you tell me that a movie is the best movie you ever seen, and I'm just going to love it, and I go see it, and I think it's a good movie, but not the best movie I've ever seen, I'm going to be disappointed because my expectation was really high and probably too high. If you tell me that, it's a good movie, you'll probably like it, and I go and I think it's wonderful, then it's better than my expectation. So what I try to do with my partner is like underpromise. And I'm seldom going to say, this is going to be the best thing we've ever seen or the best vacation we've ever gone on or the best restaurant we've ever been to, and kind of reduce my own expectations so I can be happily surprised rather than being disappointed.
So adjusting your expectations so you're not just overboard so high that the reality doesn't meet them and you get unsatisfied.
Exactly.
Okay, good little strategy there. Now let's dive into something I call the knowledge round. Just going to ask you some rapid fire questions here.
Sure.
All right, guys, if you're not reading books, then you're getting left behind. Somebody spent their entire life learning some invaluable lesson, and the best format that anyone could ever put it in is a book. It's the shortest, fastest, simplest way to consume content. So I know there are so many books available, and we talk about books all the time on the podcast. So there must be so many running through your head, and you're wondering, where do I begin? Well, I've compiled the top 30 books and success quotes from all of my guests in the last 100 episodes. So you can get them all for free. If you go to kfmfree.com, you can simply download the top 30 books that every man must live by. Again, that's kfmfree.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or unsure of their purpose?
I would say do a variety of things. Take some courses you might be interested in. I get really enthusiastic when I'm with someone who's good at something and wants to tell me about it. So I think go for variety and think about what you liked as a child. You know, what hobbies did you have? Did you collect something? Did you like playing baseball? And kind of go with that and figure out what you do like, even if you don't like it a whole lot, and try to build on that. But then also read books, take courses, meet with people, join clubs, something you might be interested in.
Yeah, I like that. And what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
Fear of other people. And I'll tell you, Andrew, it's not gone away entirely. I have to understand that it's okay to be afraid sometimes and just do it anyway. Now, some things I'm too fearful of. You know, I don't like heights, so I'm not going to look over the edge of a cliff. I'm just not going to do that because it just bothers me too much. So that holds me back. But then I go into areas where I'm comfortable. In business, I'm very comfortable with money and talking about money. That's never been fearful for me. Some physical things are. So I think I've overcome my fear by experience and by doing it anyway.
Yeah, I like that. Overcoming fear through experience and just doing it. Now, Can you name a person who's had a large impact on your life? Maybe a mentor? Who is this person and how have they impacted you? What did he or she say?
Well, I say my actually mentor is my father, who is now 101 years old. And I went to a concert with him last night. And, you know, he had a number of good ideas. And one was, if you're willing to promise something, you should be willing to write it down and sign your name to it. In other words, keep your word. And he also was concerned about saving money and saving enough for later, which he did a very good job of. And I'm kind of imbued with that. And also, my father is a studio musician, and he's one of the finest music teachers in the world. And he says to his students something which is really important. He said, because I don't care if you're practicing your instrument on a desert island and nobody's there in 1,000 miles, you still have to do it the best you possibly can, because every time you practice, you are establishing habits which are going to carry over to your performance. So every time you do something, do it the best you can. And for me, for example, when I write, I just can't let it go until I've written and edited and done the best I possibly can. And I think that's very good advice from my dad.
Yeah, giving it your all.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we often are playing at 50%, 70%, when if we really think about this, what you just shared with us, it's like, there's more that I can do. I'm not playing at the full level that I can play at.
That's true. And, you know, we use that as an excuse because, you see, if I only go 50% and I fail, I say, oh, well, you know, I wasn't really trying my hardest, so it's okay. Well, you might fail, but darn it, I don't want to fail without doing my absolute best. And sometimes I fail, and so that's okay. But really work at doing your best and being on the top of your game as much as you can every single time.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like that. What would you say are two of your most influential books and why?
Well, first book, People Tools, has been influential. You know, things like Belt Buckle. I watch what people do rather than what they say. You know, someone says, I'll meet you at noon, and they're always late. That's their belt buckle. They're late. So that's a lot of people have written to me about that. And People Tools for Love and Relationships just came out, but I've gotten a number of communications with people appreciating how positive it is. Because I like to give a positive message to others and to myself. And I think it's very important to have a positive attitude in life.
All right. And I got a scenario here for you. Imagine you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self. What would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
I would tell my 20-year-old self to loosen up, enjoy life, and not be so uptight and scared of everything. And not do... You know, when I was a kid, I did a lot of lying because I got out of, sometimes if I broke the window, I told my dad I didn't. I sometimes got away with it. Lying is kind of a shortcut, and you get something good right now. But boy, when you're found out, it's going to be even worse. One time I took a pumpkin on the way home from school when I was 8 years old. My father asked if I'd asked for it, and I said, sure. And he marched me down to the house where the pumpkin was. And I just sat on the sidewalk with my head in my hands, and he knocked on the door, and they said, no, your son didn't ask for the pumpkin. We're happy to give it to him. And I got punished for that. So I would say, don't lie.
All right. Funny story there. And just to wrap up, even if you have to summarize some of your main points, that's fine. What would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
Well, caring for other people is the key. And as I said at the beginning, when we started talking about people tools, if you want someone to love you, love them first. If you want them to like you, like them first, and let them know. Just let people know positive things. We're very quick to tell people when we don't like something. We should be even quicker to tell them what we do like about them and about being with them.
All right. That's good. That's good. This has been a very powerful episode here today, just really diving into relationships, both intimate and also just relationships in general. It's a topic we often ignore. We think we know we've got it taken care of, but there's been a lot of little insights, little nuggets in here that I know can make a big difference and have a large impact on a lot of guys' lives. So that's going to conclude the knowledge round, Alan. What's exciting you today? It looks like you're pumping out a lot of books in a short amount of time. What's getting you out of bed in the morning?
Actually, the writing. I really, really enjoy writing. There was a man who won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and the reporter called him and said, well, what do you think about that? And he said, well, I don't know. I haven't written about it yet. So I find I discover more about myself by writing it down and writing books, and that really turns me on.
I like that. What's the next book in mind, if you can share?
I'm working on a people tools book for parenting, for dealing with kids dealing with parents and parents dealing with kids. That's an interesting area, and since I have 6 children, I have a lot of experience at it.
All right. Okay, sounds good. And you guys can go to Amazon.com and just type in Alan Fox, and you'll see all of his books will pop right up, the People Tools series.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, peopletoolsbook.com is my website. I have a weekly blog. It's free. If you'd like to get some advice and information every week, just sign up for the blog at peopletoolsbook.com.
All right. That's fantastic. 75, blogging, all these books coming out. This is incredible. All right, Alan, thank you so much for sharing your story here and a lot of these lessons you've learned on your journey. It's been really impactful for myself and my audience. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.